Welcome back to Markets Today. We are having a conversation about the behavior of the Russian government, or the threat thereof, to attack Ukraine, and how this has affected markets regionally in Europe and globally. Now I want us to take the conversation. I'm joined by Stella from Cytonn Investments. I want us to take the conversation to the Russian stock market and how it has responded to these threats. Has it responded in any way?
Yeah, the partners or the countries that have exposure in Russia, for example, Austria and France, to be specific, have responded by adding or increasing their provisioning levels. For example...
No, before we go to those countries, the Russian market itself, the Russian stock market, has it responded? Do you see a change in the market? Has people caught the jitters as yet?
Not that much, but definitely there has to be some movement. So, and in such cases, the movement is usually downwards. So definitely the investors' confidence is going to decline, because we can see most investors retracting or pulling back from investing into these markets. So we will definitely see, or we can see, less activity in the equities market as well, and people, maybe the domestic people, the domestic locals, switching to the fixed income market, where the returns or the market is a bit secure as compared to the stocks market.
Yeah, yeah, because I was looking at the figures from Russia and I realized there's hardly any significant activity.
Yeah.
It's in a lull. It's people, you get a feeling there's a wait and see attitude.
Exactly.
People are just waiting to hear the first bomb, and then you start seeing the stampede out of the market.
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk about the French. The French president met President Putin sometime last week on a very long table, one at the end and on the other end. Have now the French markets responded?
Yeah, we've seen markets in the banking sector, to be specific. So we see that most banks, lending banks in France, are the most exposed in Russia, because they have branches there and they have assets of more than 25 billion euros. So that's a huge amount of money. If at all if it was to be lost, or if a threat is posed to them. So we've seen these banks, as I was saying earlier, adding more provisions for these loans and these assets in there, such that if anything was to happen, they will be able to absorb the shocks, and this will not definitely affect them so bad. We've also seen the mode of payment. One of the mode of payment that is most commonly used between these countries that are trading with Russia, a SWIFT mode of payment, which is at a risk of being banned in case Russia invades Ukraine. So in case this happens, and this is a big if, the people with the money or loans to these banks, it will be like a forced default, or a forced forgive for the payment of these debts. So we are likely to see more non-performing loans for these banks, and also the banks in you. So this one will affect most of the Russian banks, and for the banks that are exposed in Russia, such as France, as I have said, will have to deal with the increased non-performing loans that will come about with this. So we will see this trickle down to the profits, whereby an increase in provisioning will definitely lead to a reduction in the profits for these banks.
So what I'm hearing is a military action or a military attack on Ukraine is in fact an economic attack to the French and the Austrians.
Yeah, because of the exposure that they have in this country.
I hear you. Do we foresee other sectors in these economies also struggling? And I know you had mentioned oil. Yeah. Do we foresee the likes of Total Energy being affected?
Not that much, because as we mentioned earlier, our oils, We import most of our oils from.
No, I mean the oil companies in France.
Oh yeah.
Do we
Definitely.
foresee that they will be affected?
Yeah, they have to be affected because if at all Russia will invade Ukraine, the sanctions is the first response by the US and the NATO countries and the surrounding countries. So if at all they take the step or they take this move of invading Ukraine, the first sanction will lead to a supply constraint of this product, which is fuel. So we've said or we've mentioned that fuel is a major component of an economy. So we can also see in Kenya, just a minimum or the effects from the upper countries or the top countries has affected our prices so much that such that the country or the government has to give us a subsidy so that we cannot deal with the hike in prices. So definitely even for France, prices will rise, fuel prices will rise, and what our companies are raising fuel prices is inflation rise. And we've seen so many countries having a rise or a hike in inflation from US and all these major countries having highs that have not been there before. So this will even worsen what has been there, and definitely the consumers or the people who consume these goods are the ones who will take the cost, will bear the cost for the hike.
I want to take you back to Russia. I don't think we have done justice in taking count of the real cost of this war to the Russian community or to the Russian nation. Because, yes, there might be a stampede out of the market, but will there be a ripple effect into the rest of the Russian economy? Because I know that you had mentioned Vladimir Putin is looking for a strong legacy. Could it be that the opposite can happen out of this war in the Russian economy?
There is minimal chances because there is news that Russia is more prepared for the sanctions more than other European countries. So the effect is likely to trickle down to the other countries.
As opposed to Russia itself.
And not mostly in Russia.
Mother Russia will survive.
Yeah.
But I think I agree with you, and the reason I agree with you is because you see, both Russia and China were traditionally command economies. Yeah. And so even in terms of investment is made from that philosophy of a command economy. There's a lot more investments by government than the private sector.
Yeah.
And the private sector plays a secondary role. And so the government will not be keen to withdraw its investments merely because it has invaded.
Exactly. The government is sure our investments are safe. They are safe in our hands.
Yeah, so even if there is a movement, it will be minimal because it's government, and mostly the private investors are people in government.
Exactly.
Okay. I know we've talked about other European countries that might also catch the cold, but do you think there will be a contagion in other countries, and perhaps which other countries do you think will be affected?
So we've mentioned France, we've also mentioned Poland, Germany, all these countries surrounding Russia, and not to forget Ukraine itself will be affected. So we are likely to see more people flee out of Ukraine in case of an invasion by Russia. So again, this will cause crisis, a refugee crisis to the countries surrounding this country, Russia. So they will have more people coming into their country, and they will also feel the effect of insecurity or an invasion in there, because Ukraine has other surrounding countries as well. So that is one thing that will definitely affect the countries surrounding Ukraine, and also Russia, the refugee crisis. Then fuel prices, that is the main thing that we can see coming out of this invasion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, is it time that perhaps the British got proud of themselves and say, thank God we left the Eurozone, because they may not be as affected as the other countries?
I don't think so, in my opinion, because we can see more benefits than this war or this invasion that has not yet happened, but we are speculating it will happen. So in their case, they'll first have to look at the positives and the negatives and weigh the two. So for me, I'd look at the positives. And the invasion does not happen, the roulette does not happen every time.
Yeah.
It's once in a while, and you can see Russia or Ukraine being supported by most of the countries, the NATO countries, the US. Joe Biden vows to support Ukraine, and in case any other country in the NATO is touched, he vows to go full force to protect the country.
Stella, are you saying really the only person who will smile in this war is Putin and no one else in Europe? Because even the Brits, you're saying they may not smile as much. They may not be affected, yes, but they will be affected.
Yeah, not that much, but yeah, Putin will be the most beneficial member of this invasion, if at all it goes, or if at all it succeeds. Yeah.
Fair enough. Now you had brought it home to Kenya and perhaps the rest of the globe being affected by this. Could you just do an analysis of how we expect this geopolitical issue somewhere in Europe to affect us here?
Yeah, the effect might be so minimal. We might not feel the effect that much, because for starters, as I had said, we don't get most of our oils from Russia. So in case there is that sanction, we will not suffer in terms of being supplied oil from Russia. But then we will suffer the cost of a hike in prices, because definitely the supply will go down, supply for this product. So it goes down, other countries look for alternatives, so we will be competing for the few or the minimum mines that are in the other countries. So definitely there will be a hike in prices. And we can see that, as I had said, for Kenya, we are getting a subsidy from the government, whereby the government is paying for the extra cash so that us Kenyans or the local citizens can survive or cannot pay more for the oil. But we don't see this going too far, because how will the government be able to sort this subsidy? So in case there is more increase or more rise in the fuel prices, it's likely that we are going to suffer a hike in oil prices.
We will get the cold.
Exactly.
How sustainable is this oil subsidizing program by the government?
It's not that much. It is not likely to go for long, because there are news, or not certified, that the suppliers are not getting paid what they have, what they are missing by selling the oil price or the oil or the fuel at the same price that they bought it from. So we have also seen news that the money, that the subsidy money is going to the treasury. It's being diverted to the treasury to pay other debts instead of paying the subsidy. So in this case, we don't see the subsidy being sustainable for a longer period of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We may perhaps remain here for a while.
Yeah.
Okay then. Thank you very much for your analysis. I think that was quite eye-opening. Just off the cuff, before you go, we are having our own version of the Russian roulette, or should I say, call it the Ruto roulette versus the DRC. And there has been some significant feedback around that statement by Ruto that there is no single cow in DRC. Is there a possibility of us losing favor with the DRC government and some of the deals that we've been able to sign with them?
Then, so we can look at it in a different way, such that Ruto, the deputy president, is on a campaigning route. So these are remarks that maybe are said in a bid to...
In the heat of the moment.
Exactly. So I think this, in my opinion, these agreements were done between the government of DRC and the government of Kenya, the presidents included. So the president and the deputy president didn't say it together. It was not a written thing or an agreed thing. So it's likely not going to affect what we have with DRC.
Yeah, because I saw their ambassador is unhappy with the statement. And she has made it clear what she feels about it. I think I also saw a statement by the Kenyan embassy in DRC distancing itself from that statement and affirming the good relationship we have with DRC. Exactly. How is, I don't know if you know the trade balance between Kenya and DRC, and if in fact a relationship would affect our well-being in a big way.
Not really. So this would affect, will not affect the individuals or the companies. For example, equity in DRC, it will not affect that. It wouldn't affect the stock market or the equities bank in DRC because of that statement. The statement is individual. Like it was said by one person, not a whole government. So I really don't think that statement will affect our relationship with DRC.
I want to hold your faith, and I want to believe that that is the status. Except it is small individuals like Hitler that created, and their statements that created history. Well, we'll leave it at that. And I think we've had an interesting conversation about Russia and the Ukraine. What I've learned out of this conversation is twofold. One, that an attack on Ukraine by Russia, or rather a military attack on Ukraine by Russia, is in fact an economic attack on France, Poland, and Germany by Russia, because they will be affected significantly. And secondly, even the Britons, who are now not part of the Eurozone, will not be smiling when Ukraine is attacked. The only person who will come out with a smile out of this tussle is one, President Putin. The rest of the world will be bad for it, because it will affect oil prices, it will affect the financial sector, or financial services sector in France, Austria, and the other countries as well. And so perhaps for us, the rest of the world is to maintain a wait-and-see attitude. I think even the Russians themselves seem to be maintaining the same attitude. No one is making significant moves out of the stock market. That has been Markets Today for today, today's edition rather. Join us again tomorrow at 4 p.m. as we talk to Equity Bank about their newfound status of being the 5th best banking brand in the world. For now, I'll leave you with the currencies of the day running through your screen, and I hope to see you again tomorrow. Goodbye.